So, what other questions might you have that take a stab at?
How do you see space settlement as something that government should lead, or should private industry do this?
Yeah, I said earlier, NASA's focus is not settlement, but certainly their focus is exploration and technology development, which can definitely be applied to space. You got to go there and explore, and you got to develop the technology to settle. But I think that a combination of both private and public partnerships are important. And this has been happening over the last 10 years, especially if you look at SpaceX and the commercial crew program with the International Space Station and commercial cargo as well, where
Hmm.
NASA just outsources the services like launch and cargo delivery to private industry. And
Right.
you can certainly do that on the moon as well as Mars. And actually, we're already seeing that. SpaceX already has customers for Starship going to Mars.
Oh, does it? Okay.
By the way, they're also looking at manufacturing in low Earth orbit, and they don't even have the vehicle yet, but they're already signing people up to do that. That's definitely the answer. There's a role for government and there's a role for private industry. And when they partner together, they do great things.
Okay. So, taking a different tack, what about law? How does law and space settlement work together? Like,
Oh, a good question. I'm not an attorney, but I do hear a lot of space attorneys, especially on the space show. By the way, if you haven't listened to the space show, I highly recommend it.
okay,
It was created by Dr. David Livingston, who is also the host of the show, and he is the foremost expert on commercial space and new space economy. And so he gets attorneys on there, he gets accountants, he gets technologists, wide ranging topics. But I've heard many space attorneys come on. And of course, we have this thing called the Outer Space Treaty, which means
yeah,
that we can't go and claim as a country the moon as part of the US or something like that. However, there was a law that was passed. And now, this is in the US, obviously, back in 2015, and it
yeah,
interprets the Outer Space Treaty, which says you can't claim any bodies in the solar system as your own. However, you can extract resources from them. So that law is very important for private industry to go out and say, hey, I can extract water or useful materials, rare earths from an asteroid and sell it. That makes the case, the business case, to go out and do that. And Astroforge is doing that. So that's very important. The other thing that we have to be careful with is if different countries and different entities, different companies or whatever go to the moon, what happens to the heritage sites of the Apollo landers, that sort of thing? And there needs to be some regulatory restrictions about, destruction of those sites. We want those to be heritage sites. They're very
right.
important for our history. And so For All Moonkind is a organization that's set up by Michelle Hanlon, who's a space attorney at the University of Mississippi. It creates a regulatory structure so that we take care of those sites. When we go to Mars
Hmm.
and start putting hardware on Mars, there's an office of NASA called the Planetary Protection Office
Oh,
that
yeah.
it wants to ensure, number one, that if we bring material back, we don't contaminate Earth, if there's something biological there that we don't know about. And then the other part is if there's a living ecosystem on Mars that we don't know about, we don't want to destroy it, right?
Yeah.
So when launch licenses are granted to SpaceX or other companies that go to Mars, we want to make sure that they're not polluting those environments or that they take care to preserve the environment. There's regulations there that come into play. And
Yeah.
the other thing about the Outer Space Treaty is that There's some provisions in the treaty that allows you, once you're on the moon and have it established an outpost, you can establish a protection zone around that. And so there are laws that govern that. And so that's setting up kind of a sense of urgency of who gets there first and
Yes.
sets up their camp. And the Chinese are going to be there. And so it depends on how you want to eventually run your settlement. Do you want to run it under the Chinese type government, or do you want to run it under the free world's government? The other thing is the Artemis Accords that were put together. And I think there's 56 countries now and counting that have signed up for that, provide
Okay.
a legal framework for interpreting the Outer Space Treaty. And so everybody who signs up with that agrees that when they go into space, they're going to abide by those guidelines from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah. So you can't claim the moon as your own, but what about like asteroids? Like they're much smaller.
So, yeah, so that's a good question. So it says that you cannot claim as a country a celestial body as yours, a sovereign ownership.
Right.
But you can go there and extract resources.
If the asteroid's small enough, like you start extracting and then there's no asteroid left.
Yeah, well, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I say do it. Let's go test the law. I don't think planetary protection will come in there because it's pretty clear that things can't live on an asteroid. There's no atmosphere. But if you're using all the resources in space and selling it there, yeah, I say go for it.
Or what do you think would be if you decided to redirect an asteroid into Earth orbit? Would you be able to claim exclusive use of that asteroid for mining?
Yeah, again, I'm not a space attorney, but I've heard space attorneys say, that's kind of ambiguous. I don't understand the law there. It hasn't really been created. We're not going to deal with it until it happens. So
Okay.
Astroforge is probably going to go out there and start doing it. And then
Okay.
and then the question is, which court do you bring it in? Do you bring it in the country of the company that has the launch license, or is it in an international court? I don't know. So we need an attorney. Oh, one other thing on space law. I'm sure you're aware that low Earth orbit is getting more and more crowded just because of all these constellations of satellites that are going up. And there's more to come. And it's getting more and more difficult to maneuver. And if any of these get destroyed, it creates this cloud of debris that could cause all kinds of damage to existing satellites. And there's a real threat there. There are companies that are coming into existence now that are trying to mitigate orbital debris by either recycling them or deorbiting them. There's been some laws and some agreements among industry about the lifetime of satellites. I think it used to be 25 years. Now they've reduced that to 5 years. And
Oh
so
yeah.
before you get a launch license, you have to have a mitigation plan for how you're going to retire the satellite. Some of the ones that are in real low Earth orbit say, okay, once it gets retired, we're going to deorbit it and let it burn up in the atmosphere. But there's other companies that want to use that material. Once it's in orbit, that's a valuable material. There's metal there that can be used. One company called Cislunar Industries has a process where they can cut metal off of a satellite and use it for fuel. And so they would then scavenge one satellite and maybe use part of it for fuel and then deorbit it and then use that fuel to go get the next one and so on. They think they have a business case where that makes sense. Now, here's where the law comes in. The Outer Space Treaty says, okay, if you got a piece of a defunct satellite in orbit, it's the companies or the countries that owns it. How can you have some other company come in and lay claim to that? So some legislation is needed to simplify the laws there that says we can either have agreements between these companies or there's some mechanism where that company can go and recycle that material. Again, I'm not an attorney, but
Well, this
It's
would,
a hot space law topic.
if you've got a satellite in orbit and you've lost control of it, like, you're still technically responsible for it, right? So you could
You
hire
are.
that company to come and deal with it and deorbit it for you. And I would think that nobody would question that from a legal standpoint. But if you didn't hire somebody to come and look after it, and they came and, well, they're like, "Oh, it's defunct. I'm just going to destroy it," then yeah, I could definitely see a lawyer making a case.
Yeah. And so there's a concern for folks that call themselves O'Neillians that want big free space settlements in orbit around Earth. And one suggested pathway for getting O'Neill type colonies is to start in low Earth orbit where you're protected by the Earth's magnetic field. And so you
Right.
don't need as much radiation shielding. And so you can start small, but they're still large objects. And so they create this big cross section. And if you've got other satellites in that area, there's a lot of satellites up there that aren't used that need to be
Right.
deorbited. And so if you could provide some mechanism that would encourage companies to recycle that material, in other words, maybe you create some sort of bounty where there's a financial incentive to go hunt these satellites down. That might be a mechanism. But if we are going to make these big settlements in low Earth orbit, we need to deal with the orbital debris problem. So that's a real concern.
Yep, that's for sure. Oh, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to take another turn here. For people who are listening, like, say, students or young people, what kind of advice would you give for getting into the space industry?
Obviously, the technical route, you're going to want to major, you got to be good at math, you got to be good at engineering, that sort of thing. I would advocate that anything that you're interested in can really be applied to space. If you're a business person, a business degree can be applied to space, and so can communication. Certainly, computer science, all the engineering, physics, or space sciences are a route to go. The other thing you can do, though, is network. And if you haven't joined the National Space Society, I'm not marketing for the National Space Society, but they do have this yearly conference called the International Space Development Conference. It's mainly in the US.
Yeah, I was looking at their past, and they've only ever been out of the United States once, and that was in Toronto.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yeah.
how is this international?
Good point. It is a U.S. organization. It's international in that if you've ever been to one, you've got students coming in from all over the world. And
Okay.
they're working on space settlement plans. There's
Yep.
contests for designing space settlements. A lot of people from the space industry come to this, and you can make connections there that can open doors for you for a career in the space industry. That's an avenue as well. But just do good in school. And if you have an interest in space, reach out to either people in the National Space Society. There's other local space organizations, Students for the Exploration of Space, SEDS is a good way to, and those organizations are throughout the world. I think it's an international group. The International Space University is another route. If you aim high, if you're in high school and want to get into space, then maybe look into that. But you can also, after you've been in the industry for a while, if you have any sort of degree, you can go to the International Space University. I think I'm getting the name wrong. But yeah, that's an avenue.
Okay. So, what kind of questions should I have asked that I didn't?
You covered a lot of good ground here.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing I would suggest is looking at different websites that are, the Mars Society is another good resource. They're obviously focused on Mars, and they have international conferences as well. So, a topic I didn't touch on it, but you asked kind of in general what trends or miracles would need to be done. Life support is very important. We need these controlled environmental life support systems, which are basically ecosystems in space that not only grow food, but provide the oxygen and recycle the waste. back
Yep.
into the system. So it's a closed system, and that technology needs to be improved considerably. That's an important technology. I'm working on a post right now with a space farmer who is
Okay.
also a computer scientist. He has a piece that he came out with recently on artificial intelligence and its role in controlling space farms. And as that technology progresses, it'll make it easier to manage all the things that you need to balance in an ecosystem in space.
I'd be very interested in reading that, I think.
I can give you a link to that piece if you
Okay,
want,
great.
and others.
Thank you. So who else should I talk to in my quest to become an expert in space settlement?
Yeah, I would start with Dr. David Livingston of the
Okay.
Space Show. I can introduce you if you want. There's another organization, and so I'm an advisor on the Space Show. This other guy, his name is Doug Plata, and he created this Space Development Network. And he's very
Oh,
active in high priority initiatives for space settlement, space farms, launch, ISRU, all kinds of things. And he has a website as well. So he would be a good contact for you. I
okay.
can put you in contact with the guy that I mentioned that's working on the AI for space
Yeah.
farms. His name is Bryce Meyer, and he is located in Illinois. And he's a really smart guy on artificial intelligence and space farming. So I would highly recommend that one.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very interesting. Exactly the type of things that I wanted. Yeah, for my YouTube channel. Thank you. Any books that you would recommend to read?
Have you read The High Frontier An Easier Way?
So I bought it on Amazon after the last time we talked. I haven't actually started reading it yet. I think I've
Yeah.
cracked it open, but that was as far as I got.
Yeah, that's a great one. By the way, I forgot to mention the National Space Society just came out with a book that is available to its members. And this is a kind of a draft version. They're going to have a hard copy come out next year in June. What it is.
Renewed.
Um,
Eagle's Vision for the
yeah.
21st Century. Nice.
Yeah. So what this is, they had a workshop. They have a workshop every year on space settlement.
Mm-hmm.
And back in 2021, they opened it up to O'Neill's dream is not happening as fast as we wanted it to.
Oh,
What needs to be done to what has happened now or by now, what is happening now, the trends you're talking about that will accelerate this, and where are we at, and what do we need to do to get it? And so it's a refresh of O'Neill's dream. That would be a book that I recommend. It's not out yet, but I bet you I could get you a copy.
I'm a member of the NSS.
Then you will get it. They're sending it to all members. I
Oh,
just got
okay.
an advanced copy because I'm on the advocacy committee. So there you go.
Okay, great. I will look forward to that.
Good.
Okay, so how was this talk? We've been talking
Yeah,
for about an hour. You got the camera working?
yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's we covered a lot of topics, and your questions are good. I like that they're kind of general, so they're kind of open ended, and you can
Yeah,
really get kind of some rambling answers. And sorry, I'm kind of long winded, but I am
that's perfectly fine.
enthusiastic about this stuff. So
Good.
yeah, I hope this goes well for you, and I hope you're able to make this a success.
Okay, thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure talking to you for the last hour. We'll
Yeah,
talk
I've
to you
enjoyed
again.
it.